In this married and imperfect manner, Oedipus clings to a measure of true knowledge, righteousness, and reason. Antigone as well shows a measure of righteousness as she courageously defies the state and Creon to her duty and to her family. All of this is undone by the terrible powers of the gods. By the end of the first play, Oedipus has come to see himself as he really is. A helpless pawn who is trapped by the god's instance that he has sought to avoid. Ironically, by the time he has gawked at his own eyes upon gaining a clear sight of his life, Oedipus has come to bear the perverse of imago Dei of the gods that he serves. The Greek gods habitually murder or attempt to murder their parents and commit acts of sexual infidelity and depravity. Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, murdered his own father, Cronos, and was involved in so many anniversary adulteries that even listing them would be quite a challenge. The difference between Oedipus and the gods is that he falls into sin unwillingly and accidentally, while the gods rape and murder their adherents for sport and slay and comfort with impunity. In this story, however, the humans, more than the deities, bear marks of being created by a holy god. In Oedipus, there is a much common grace as, in many ways, he defines virtue. The gods, however, bear no such marks. Instead of demonstrating a moral righteousness and holiness, they lead their prey into temptation and transgression. They deliver Oedipus into do unknowing evil to himself. In the case that the Oleander, there is a clear distinction between the right and wrong way to treat it. This kind of clear distinction can be called antithesis. This antithesis means that the wise will avoid touching or especially eating it. If the law is unknown, however, the disaster may result. In the Theban Trilogy, there is no antithesis, clear distinction between sin and righteousness. The main reason for this is that the gods are the worst and yet the most powerful beings in the story. Their immorality or lack of moral absolutes blurs the lines between righteousness and sin. Is it right to kill one's parents? The gods themselves do it, but they destroy Oedipus by causing him to unwittingly fall into his sin. Is it right to perform the burial rites for a brother? The gods demand it, but when Antigone obeys them, she is left without a protector, and the gods allow Creon to destroy her. Parenthetically, our readers should know that the classics departments of many universities seem to take the side of the gods and seek to find some fault with poor Oedipus. They accuse him of hubris or inordinate pride. Often Oedipus and others like him attract the wrath of the gods because they do too much good, solving too many riddles and saving too many cities. They are too good, too beautiful, too courageous. The Greek ideal of perfection, called the golden mean, which is based on finding one's place and balance between extremes, is thereby transgressed and the wrath of gods is incurred. One has to wonder what motivates the gods to punish people for inordinate goodness or virtue. Jealousy? Insecurity? Hardly justifiable. They should not be construed as a slight to the intellect of any particular classics professor who takes the side of evil gods against the beleaguered Oedipus. On the contrary, one would have immense cleverness to seriously attempt to justify the wretched actions of these horrid deities. Just so we are clear, though, any attempt to justify these gods is futile. That is even more hopeless for those stuck in this flawed worldview is that the gods never make their will clearly known to anyone. People search for the opinion of prophets and oracles, but the path of blessing always remains unclear. The gods and their will remain hidden except for troubling prophecies that cannot be avoided. Wisdom is mocked by these gods. Everyone in their place scrambles to avoid the wrath of the gods being visited upon them. They all take wise steps to avoid destruction, but this is all for naught. Laius trusts that he has killed the child whose birth prophecy says will kill the king himself, but he cannot stop fate. Oedipus flees Corinth to avoid the fulfillment, yet in doing this he brings the oracle one step closer to completion. Antigone wisely seeks over Polixenes' body secretly, but all her wisdom comes to nothing, as the destructive plans of the bloodthirsty deities are satisfied. The gods of the Theban Trilogy turn wisdom and folly upside down. Those people who take sensible steps, wise steps, to avoid folly are punished by having the gods transform these wise actions into the very folly that they were hoping to escape. For those trapped in this awful worldview, the future holds nothing but a grim realization that the world is a garden full of poisonous plants that they will destroy them, whenever or whatever reason they deem appropriate. Imagine that! Nothing is ever safe, and no hope of liberation from the gods of this system could reasonably be expected. This mirrors the lines one might read on a modern bumper sticker saying, "Life is hard and then you die." The future of gods The future of the family of Oedipus in the world is bleak. The gods are the unchallenged rulers over all. Their power brings human wisdom crashing down, but their evil attributes and vague revelation mean that man, like Oedipus, faces a future of blind groping, not knowing whether he is pleasing the gods or bringing down a curse on his city and his family. These gods cannot be escaped, reasoned with, or known, so man must traverse the darkness, hoping for a short life and quiet death. After death, however, the picture gets even less clear. Theban Trilogy does not present any extended discourse on the afterlife. Other works like the Odyssey outline some expectation. Achilles' picture of the land shades is not flattering, and what is worse, the gods still rule the lands beyond the grave. Oedipus longs for death and Colonus, but his hope for peace is not grounded in anything he knows about the gods. Neither Oedipus nor Antigone live life in peace. Oedipus dies knowing that, while his horrible life is coming to an end, the curse is still being fulfilled against his family. He has foreseen the death of Eteocles and Polynices at each other's hands. Antigone, as well, goes to death by her own hand, and death is instrumental in the death of Hermon as well. The future line of Oedipus, like all of life, withers under the watchful care of these monster gods. If a young child did eat some of the highly toxic oleander, he would be taken to the doctor. Some antidote would be applied and hopefully he would be saved. Unfortunately, in the case of the poison of this worldview, no known antidote exists. There is no way of salvation or redemption open to Oedipus and his family. Only the awful fear that the fulfillment of dreadful prophecies cannot be avoided. No way of salvation or protection is open to anyone in this tale. No sacrifice for sin presents itself in the work. The whole concept of sin has been muddled by the unrighteous and shadowy behavior of the gods. There is no concept of incarnation, not that anyone would really desire to see an incarnation of these troubling deities. No certain communication exists between the god and their people. The gods do from time to give words to people like the Delphic oracle and Tiresias, but even this is shadowy at best. There is no body that binds people together like the church. They live in city-states. Most of the action takes place in Thebes, but this unity is not connected to any of the gods or any way that yields hope for Oedipus or his family. There is also no gospel to preach. The gods have not revealed their will, and they punish virtue. There are no sacraments. As Oedipus heads into the exile, the possibility of him being cleaned by repentance, faith, and baptism, or anything like it, never surfaces. His actions heap shame and scorn upon himself, and his community, as well as his sons, block him out of their minds, as this lone exile walks into a life of poverty and wandering. There is no antidote for the poisonous worldview seen in these plays. At the beginning of the trilogy, the only sign of the awful poison coursing through this worldview is a plague which is crippling the city of Thebes. All other appearances look stable, and hope for relief from the plague seems possible with the riddle-solving King Oedipus at the helm of state. Appearances, however, can be misleading. The king and queen look like a happy couple. The royal line appears stable, with both Eteocles and Polynices growing into manhood. All of that, however, comes to an end. The gods have other plans. Like the unsuspecting person drawn in by the beauty of the oleander, the family of Oedipus is destroyed. The hands of their gods, who should represent the highest good, drip with the blood of innocent people who fruitlessly sought to avoid fulfilling their hard will. The trick of the gods worked. The poison has no antidote. The family of Oedipus was destroyed, and the worldview of a life under these vicious gods is one of unending hopelessness and pain. G. Tyler Fisher.